Now, there's a couple of really good historical examples of people being able to translate vision into action. One of my favourites is what actually turned out to be an apocryphal story. Apparently this didn't actually happen, but it's the story of JFK, John F. Kennedy, President of the United States, visiting NASA during the height of the space race in 1961. Now he's doing the tour, he's going around, he's meeting the engineers, he's talking to astronauts and that sort of thing. And the story goes that he went to go to the bathroom at one point and saw a janitor mopping the floor there, and he introduced himself. He's in full presidential campaign mode. "G'day son, I'm Jack Kennedy, how are you?" And he asked the janitor, what do you do here at NASA? And the janitor says, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." So this wonderful concept that at all layers in the organisation, everyone is super clear on what their goal is, the organisational goal, and what their role is. But it also speaks to the kind of attitude that pervaded through that organisation, that everyone was in this for the greater good. Now, a really good way of cascading that organisational goal throughout the organisation is through a concept known as mission command. Now, this is a military concept and it dates all the way back to the Napoleonic War. In this case, we're talking about the twin battles of Jena and Auerstedt, which happened in 1806. So way back in the early 19th century, the Prussian military was the absolute pinnacle of militaries throughout Europe. They were the best trained, the best drilled, the best equipped, the best led. They had a very professional army. However, at these twin battles, they were absolutely comprehensively defeated by what they contemptuously referred to as Napoleon's adhocracy. They looked at Napoleon's force, which was largely comprised of volunteers, and they thought that they weren't a professional army in the same way that they were. And yet Napoleon was able to defeat them in detail. Now, while the Prussians may have been a bit guilty of hubris at the start of that battle, they were also very introspective as to how that defeat came about afterwards. And they studied the battle to try and improve their command and control techniques. And what they recognised was that Napoleon had implemented what they came to call Auftragtaktik, which is a Prussian word which has been translated in most modern militaries as mission command. And there's a couple of principles that they identified that Napoleon was employing that had allowed him to have that victory. One of their key observations was that unlike their very rigid command and control system, the Napoleon's forces had a lot more delegated authority. So Napoleon was able to delegate decision-making powers down to his lower level commanders. And what this allowed them to do was capitalise on fleeting opportunities without having to ask for permission all the way back up the chain of command, but it also allowed them to react to unexpected contingencies. Now, the only way he could do this was if all of his subordinate commanders understood what right looked like, understood what their mission was, what their role was, and what the higher commander's intent was. And so this has led to this formalisation of the concept of mission command in most modern militaries. Now, the three key principles of mission command are listed here on the screen. The first one is that it's reliant on a centralised intent but decentralised execution. The second is that both the task and the purpose are very clear at all levels within the organisation. And the third is that every effort is made to gain a common mental model throughout the entire organisation so that everyone understands what's going on. So let's have a look at these three concepts in a little more detail. The first is this idea of centralised intent and decentralised execution. One of the best examples, another good military one, is Eisenhower's direction at the end of the Second World War, seize Berlin. This is a super clear, really understandable intent that everyone in that organisation can get behind. So all the way from the people who are packing parachutes to the soldiers on the front line making split-second decisions, tactical decisions, they knew that ultimately they wanted to support the idea of seizing Berlin. So if we can have this idea, this centralised intent that's well communicated through the organisation, we can make a lot of mileage and we can really empower our subordinate decision makers. By means of a more contemporary example, one of our clients during the COVID outbreak was able to identify their 3 key priorities throughout the period. As you can see on the screen, clearly stated their intent throughout this whole organisation was, number 1, look after our people, number 2, look after our business, and number 3, look after our customers' businesses. So you can see by describing that intent, so the overall intent of the organisation, you're able to convey a lot more information than trying to give really prescriptive detail and micromanage the sort of tasks. So wherever possible, what we want to be able to do is try and describe our intent.